Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the best damn movie-related show on the planet Earth, the John Campea Show, coming to you from right here on my YouTube channel. I'm, of course, your host, John Campea, and it is an awesome honor and privilege, as it is every day, to have you, our international friends, gather around as we talk about our favorite things in the world, movies, movie news, TV, and streaming, and all sorts of good things. And ladies and gentlemen, it's good to be back. I know we didn't have a show on Friday. It's been like 4 days since the John Campea Show. I've been in Vegas. I'll tell you guys a little bit about that in a bit. But we're, of course, joined here today by the one and the only Mr. Robert Meyer Burnett. Robert, how you doing today, sir?
John, it's the first Monday of summer, and let me tell you, I'm optimistic about the world and all of the great entertainment properties that were coming down the pike right at us, man. I'm excited.
It's good to have you here. And as a matter of fact, you're not the only one here, because today it is a truly great day. The Olympus movie gods have smiled upon us, opened up the heavens, and rained down a little bit of Scott Mantz on us, ladies and gentlemen. Movie Mantz is here. Scott, how you doing today, sir?
Doing great. Thanks so much for having me on your show. It's been a while, John. It's great to see you, my friend Rob. We got lots to talk about on the first day of summer.
Yeah, and listen, more than just that, Scott, you, by the way, and we'll talk about this a little bit more later, but you are working on a new movie project right now, a new documentary project called Movies of the Greatest Geek Year Ever. Tell us a little bit about this documentary you're working on, quick.
Okay, so I'm producing my first ever documentary, and it's called 1982 Greatest Geek Year Ever. And basically, it is a documentary about the greatest geek year ever for movies because 1982, I mean, a lot of people talk about 1977 because Star Wars and Close Encounters, but really the best year for movies was 1982. Just look at June. You got Wrath of Khan, Star Trek II, you got Poltergeist, Blade Runner, E.T., John Carpenter's The Thing. So many great movies came out in 1982. It was just the culmination of everything that we love in one year. And me and Mark Altman and Roger Lay, with the help of Mike Okuda, we are going to be producing a documentary interviewing the filmmakers and the actors and the famous fans who helped make 1982 the year it is. And we have a Kickstarter campaign to help us get the movie made. And that is what I'm going to be talking about later on in your show.
All right, well, it's good to have you here, Guy, and it's good to have you guys here as well. Again, we have a whole bunch of things to talk about here today. This is how today's show is going to go. We're going to start off the first half of the show talking about some pre-lined up topics, and then we're going to move into the second half of the show where we take your live comments and questions. How do you send in a live comment or question to be read on the show or in an upcoming companion video? It's easy. Just go down into the description of this video and you will see a tip link. Click on it there manually, or you can just enter it in your web browser at www.streamelements.com/movieblogtv/tip. You'll be getting your comment or question on the show if it's appropriate for our show, of course. And of course, you'll be supporting the channel at the same time, and all of us involved with the John Campea Show. Thank you guys very, very much for your support. Okay, guys, with that down, let's get started. We're going to get going here with an off the top, and that one is this. Now, you guys know that, of course, my all-time single favorite DCEU movie is Man of Steel, obviously. But my second all-time favorite DCEU movie, not that there have been a ton of them, but my second favorite one is actually Shazam. I love that movie. I thought it was charming and entertaining. It was just, Zach was great in it. Of course, you had Mark Strong in there as well. I thought the kids were fantastic. I love this movie. I absolutely love it. And I was a little bit nervous when the box office, it made money, but hardly any. It didn't exactly blow the doors off the box office. I was nervous they wouldn't do another one, but they are. And more than that now, we have got our first look. The director of Shazam 2 has given us our first look at the new costumes of the Shazam family, and they look good. Now, what's interesting of note here with the new picture of the Shazam family, is that Mary is now being played by the same actress, both as the, Mary in the real world and as she transforms into, Mary Marvel. Is that what they called her in the comics, Rob? I think it was Mary Marvel. As she transforms into Mary Marvel, she's the same, which makes sense because she was older than all the other kids. So that makes sense. Now, look, I am dying for this movie. I'm excited for this movie. I think these costumes look better because while I never minded the costumes on the other kids, Shazam's was obviously, it looked padded. Now, obviously, all superhero costumes obviously bulk them up a bit, but they don't look like there's pillows underneath them. And that's one criticism of the first Shazam movie that I identified with is that the costume looked it didn't look as bad in the movie theater as it did on the trailers, but still, I thought it was a step up. I like the look of these costumes. Rob, you've had a chance now to see these costumes. What do you think about the new look?
Dude, I grew up loving the Shazam family in the comics. All I can say, John, these are 6 hot toys I want to buy. I hope they make the entire Shazam family. I look at these costumes and I think to myself, this is perfect. I love the color palette. I've always loved I still call him Captain Marvel. I'll always call him Captain Marvel, but let's call him Shazam because I get it. But I do think these costumes are amazing. I love them. I think they're classy. Even though Shazam had a big lightning bolt on his chest, there was something almost elegant with the red and then the white cape that had gold accents on it. All the way from when I was a kid watching the Shazam ISIS Hour. They even made a
memories
of Captain Marvel Shazam. I've always loved this costume. I think this looks fantastic.
I agree. I think they look really great. Scott, you've had a chance. First of all, I've never even known. What are your thoughts on like the first Shazam movie, but what do you think about the look of these costumes as well?
Okay, let's answer your second question first. Looking at this like family photo here, I got very jazzed for the sequel, which I think isn't coming out for another couple years. I think it's 2023 is when it's supposed to come out. But I love the first movie, like you. The first Shazam, made $366 million worldwide. When you look at the likes of so many other movies, including like Man of Steel and The Dark Knight Rises and those kinds of things, it didn't really cross $1 billion worldwide. But I think the first Shazam movie was really fun, really charming. I agree with you. Mark Strong was also great in the movie. And I think that the first Shazam, along with Wonder Woman, really started to turn the tide for people who were not really that hip on the DCEU. I liked Man of Steel, not as much as you did, but I definitely liked it and appreciated it. And I appreciated what Zack Snyder has done with the DCEU. But I think because the general consensus is that it's so dark and they're trying to do so much and trying to catch up with the MCU, that the quality suffered in some of these other DCEU movies. But with Wonder Woman and then definitely with Shazam, I feel like they got the tone right. Warner Brothers Studios got the tone right for the future of the DCEU. And just looking at this cast photo for the next Shazam movie, Fury of the Gods, I just wow, I can't wait for this. I wish we didn't have to wait so long for it.
Yeah, I think, what I think it is? I think it's obviously in our modern, because you're wondering, why are they leaking these pictures? Because of, we've got some other topics we're going to be talking about here of leaked images. I feel like today more and more we're seeing the studios get a little bit more tuned into that and realize, we don't want the public's first look at these things to be some garbage from a distance, semi-blurry thing. We might as well just release some official photos ourselves and get ahead of that. And I think that's why they did. And I think it worked out well. Question is for you guys. What do you think about the new image? Obviously, this image doesn't mean the movie's going to be good or bad. It's just an image, but still, I like it. How do you guys feel about it? Jump on down into the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. Okay, guys. With that down, let's move on to one more off the top, shall we? And that one more off the top is this. Speaking of upcoming movies, one I've been interested in has been Snake Eyes. Mostly, I admit, because it's got Henry Golding in there. I think this guy is a bona fide star. I think he's going to be around for a long time. I dig this dude's vibe very, very much. I thought it was interesting. Then, of course, you got the star of Warrior, HBO's Warrior in there, who I believe is playing Storm Shadow in this. I thought the first little teaser they put out was kind of interesting, but today they dropped the full trailer, a lot more references to Cobra in it. We get to see Golding in the classic Snake Eyes look. They've modernized it a bit, which I thought worked. And I got to tell you what, this does not look like Game of Thrones. But I'd be lying to you if I didn't tell you that I thought the trailer was fun. Is it the greatest trailer I've seen in a year? No. But I thought this thing was good. It gave us a good idea of the characters themselves. It gave us a little bit of the background. It gave us a great little taste of the action. It gave us samples of the actors involved. Again, they introduced the whole notion of Cobra in that, which of course, Cobra is in the title of the movie, which by the way, I thought, I don't think this movie needs to be called, Snake Eyes. Oh, look over there. Here comes Cobra. I don't think that needs to be the name of this movie. The name of the movie should have just been Snake Eyes, but fine, whatever. But they introduced the concept of Cobra in here pretty well. Overall, listen, I always say, guys, that the job of a trailer is to take your enthusiasm, however high or however low it is, and bump it up a couple of notches. This trailer has bumped up my excitement and anticipation for this movie by a couple of notches. I thought it did a very good job. Rob, you had a chance to take a look at the Snake Eyes trailer this morning. What did you make of it? How did you like it?
Bruh. I mean, if somebody made a trailer that wanted to, check all my boxes, this trailer did so. I can't believe, look, I love my martial arts. And the G.I. Joe movies were never, I loved G.I. Joe growing up, but they were never a little too much CGI, a little too goofy for me. I would rather have seen something a little bit more grounded. I looked at this and I'm like, I can't imagine a better version of a Snake Eyes origin, at least what the trailer shows us. I can't believe we're getting Shang-Chi and we're getting this Snake Eyes movie coming out at relatively the same time, well, within a few months of each other. Somebody reached in and discovered. I honestly believe these movies were made just for me, John. They knew that Rob Burnett wanted some martial arts action in his future, in theaters, in cinemas, and it seems like I'm getting it. And I mean, everything about this movie looks terrific to me. And I never thought I would say this, but I am really, really excited to see this G.I. Joe's Origins movie.
Oh, and by the way, guys, I'll throw in there.
Call me crazy.
Sends in a super chat badge in the live chat. Thank you, Anyway, Scott, you had a chance this morning to check out this. Again, this is new to all of us. It just dropped this morning. What did you think about this Snake Eyes trailer? And did it do anything to alter positively or negatively your anticipation of this upcoming film?
Yes, it did. It made it positive, and that is because of Henry Golding. I thought he was great, obviously, in Crazy Rich Asians. He was also really good in the movie Last Christmas. And, this is really positioning him as an action hero, definitely going off in a much more commercial direction. And I think that he should. He definitely has the chops, and he shows it in this trailer. And I think that this trailer also warned me over to the G.I. Joe franchise. The first movie, Rise of the Cobra, when it came out in 2009, it made $152 million worldwide. I thought it was okay. And then G.I. Joe Retaliation came out in 2013, and that had Dwayne Johnson in it, and it made $253 million worldwide. I thought that was okay, and I loved Dwayne Johnson in the film, but I'm not the biggest super G.I. Joe fan. So I'm just approaching Snake Eyes as an action movie, and I already like Henry Golding, and I'm very pumped to see him as an action hero in Snake Eyes. So this movie warmed me over to the G.I. Joe franchise, if nothing else.
You mentioned, I'm glad you brought up, the Last Christmas, because it tells you something about a performer when you don't even really like the movie, but you really enjoyed them in it. And I like that you brought that up with Henry Golding. And of course, Henry Golding was in one of my absolute top 5 or top 3 maybe movies of last year, which was Guy Ritchie's The Gentleman. I loved him in that. It was a very different role for him in that. I really liked him in that. By the way, Tony Rhea sends in a super chat badge in the live chat. Thank you, Tony. Anyway, the question is for you guys. What did you think about the new Snake Eyes trailer? I thought it was a really pleasant surprise. I'm looking forward to seeing this. How are you guys feeling? Jump down into the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. Okay, guys, with that all down, let's now move into our main topics today. And how do we select our main topics here on the John Campea Show? Well, it's really simple. You see, you guys come up with them. Whenever you come across a big topic, issue, or story that you think we need to make a main topic here on the John Campea Show, just go anytime 24/7 over to www.thejohncampeashow.com/contact. Once you guys get there, you're going to see a form. Fill it out with your topic or question. It's totally free. Hit submit, and then maybe, just maybe, you might see your submission featured as a main topic here on the John Campea Show. With that down, let's get into main topic number 1. And our first main topic today gets submitted to us by Eric Vargas, who writes, "Hello, John and Rob, if he's there." Rob is here today. So we all know that In the Heights didn't exactly blow the doors off with its opening weekend box office. But the movie is amazing, and a lot of us hope that strong positive word of mouth would propel it to better numbers in the following weeks. But this weekend, it dropped 63% and finished in 6th place at the box office. I know you said before it was bad marketing, but now that you've had a week to reflect on it, why has it failed, and why didn't positive word of mouth help it? All right, thanks a lot for sending that question, man. And yes, In the Heights has been a very perplexing puzzle for a lot of us who have seen the movie and enjoyed the movie. I thought the movie was fantastic. And yeah, I was not looking forward to it. Like you mentioned, Eric, in your message there, I thought the trailers were bad. They didn't do anything to make me excited for the movie. They didn't give us a sense of what the story was going to be. I didn't really know what it was about. You can't say, I've had people write into me say, John, what are you talking about? It says right in the trailer. It's about a neighborhood that was dying. It had nothing to do with the movie. It had nothing to do with people trying to save the neighborhood or anything like that. You had to see it to understand the beauty of the film. And I only went to go see it because my wife dragged me to it, and I'm so glad she did, because by the time that movie was over, my wife and I literally got up and started dancing in the aisles. It was such a good time, but yes, it totally botched at the box office. This comes to us from the folks over at Forbes who write, "No such rescue exists for In the Heights, which earned only $4.2 million, which is a drop of 63%. Now listen, it's kind of acceptable to drop anywhere from 50 to 60%, but once you start dropping over 60%, those are red lights going off. Anyway, which only earned $4.2 million, a drop of 63% in the weekend, in weekend number 2 for $19.7 million 10-day cum. At this rate, it'll be lucky to top $30 million domestic. A tragic result, even if the predictions of a $25 to $35 million debut were never quite plausible. For a movie that was made by a major studio with the best of intentions to get this kind of commercial and post-debut reception, well, don't complain when Warner Brothers says, to hell with it, and greenlights Joker 2 and A Lethal Weapon 5, because voting with our wallets is the only vote that matters. And that comes to us again from the folks over at Forbes. You know, I thought there was a possibility here for a Greatest Showman kind of pattern, because In the Heights was considered a massive disappointment opening to $11 million. But guess what? The Greatest Showman opened with only $8.8 million. It was completely off everybody's radar. But what happened is idiots like me and others are starting to whisper around to their friends, you got to see The Greatest Showman. Dude, you gotta see The Greatest Showman. This thing's like really good. And word spread, and look at the number it finished with. It ended up as a bona fide massive hit, making $435 million. Guys, we were just talking about the fact that it is standard for movies to drop 50 to 60% in its second weekend. Greatest Showman went up. It went up. It wasn't in any more theaters. It's not like it opened in 6 theaters and then opened and then, then expanded to 4,000. But it went up and it continued to go up and it ended with $435 million. And I was hoping that what we would see from In the Heights is another repetition of that. We didn't get it. It actually dropped 63%, despite the fact that it's a really good, really entertaining movie. So the question becomes again, guys, why has it stumbled and why has it failed to have this? Now, again, I go back to the marketing of it. I think the marketing of it has something to do with it. I think the fact that it was expected to do really well, I think that has something to do with it, because all the narrative was last week, guys. The narrative surrounding In the Heights wasn't how great the movie was. The narrative ended up being what a disappointment it was at the box office. And I think that might have hurt some people going out to check it out, which is really unfortunate, because this is a movie that, in my opinion, absolutely deserved better. Scott, let me ask you this. As you look at the tale of In the Heights, There was a lot of excitement going into it from the studio and people who were looking forward to it. They weren't expecting $100 million box office. We were hoping for 25, 35 million opening. Opens at 11. People like me hoping positive word of mouth would propel it. It actually dropped further than most. 2 questions for you, Scott. Question number 1 is, obviously we haven't had you on in the last couple of weeks. So what were basically your thoughts of In the Heights? Did it deserve to do better? And number 2, why hasn't it? How do you put your finger on this? What are your thoughts?
John, I have so much to say about In the Heights. And while
having something to say, really?
While you were doing your spiel just now, I kept wanting to jump in and be like, but John, but first of all, what did I think of the movie? I thought the movie was really, really good. It's 13 years ago, it was a Tony Award winning Broadway show. And then Lin-Manuel Miranda does Hamilton, and that becomes like the greatest thing since sliced bread. And I loved Hamilton. But here's the thing. So I loved the film. I thought it was a joyous movie. I had a great time with it. I love the messages about community and family. And it's coming out at a time when people are getting back out and enjoying their lives with community and family. So I thought the timing was perfect. It had great messages in the film and in terms of embracing community and family. But it was a little too long. It was 2 hours and 23 minutes long. Now, the second thing, as far as like why didn't it do well? So first of all, I want to bring up The Greatest Showman, because everyone in its second week, In the Heights would actually hold on really strong or go up like Greatest Showman did when it came out in 2017. And Greatest Showman, over the course of its run, for like the first 5 or 6 weeks, when it did drop from week to week, it fell less than 20% from week to week, showing that there was great word of mouth. And how do you spread word of mouth? You go on social media to do that. But there are 2 differences here. First of all, Greatest Showman had an A-list actor in the lead, Hugh Jackman.
Yep.
Now, Hugh Jackman, he's an A-list actor because of his action movies, but people still love him. People still, after Wolverine, they still love him in other movies. The second thing is that when Greatest Showman opened in 2017, it opened during the holiday season. So, as you know, when movies open during the holidays, there's like a lot of movies out there, and then nothing new opens for like the next 3 weeks. So for a period of time between Christmas and New Year's and into the new year, people didn't really have a lot of new movies. So there wasn't a whole lot of competition. So that's why Greatest Showman was able to flourish in that way. And also, John and Rob, Greatest Showman did not open during a global pandemic. Now, here in California, where we're taping the John Campea Show today, the turnaround with COVID has been fantastic. 6 months ago, California was the worst place in the country for the pandemic. Now it's like one of the best places in the country, and more people are getting out there. But in the middle of the country, the flyover states, the pandemic is still kind of going pretty strong. So there's that.
Yep.
The second thing is that just look at the movies that have been doing well since theaters have started to reopen in the last couple months. Godzilla vs. Kong, Quiet Place 2, Cruella, Conjuring 3. These are movies that are based on pre-existing properties. They are movies with famous people in them. And in the case of Conjuring, as you know, everyone loves going to the movies to be scared.
Yeah.
So, and also, I think that after spending so much time indoors, people want to get out. And sure, there are people who want to go to the movies, but they want to go to the movies for comfort food. They want to go to the movies that they know what to expect. In the case of A Quiet Place 2, Godzilla vs. Kong, Conjuring 3, you know what you're going to get. And we got it. We got fun movies. And Cruella did decent when it opened. I think it was like 23 or 24 million, which is pretty solid, not spectacular, but it was also streaming for a premium on Disney Plus. And that brings me to the other question. The other problem maybe is that at the same time that In the Heights was opening in theaters, it was also on HBO Max. Same day, day and date, just like Warner Brothers has been doing all year long and will continue to do for the rest of 2021. So the question is, did the HBO Max factor hurt In the Heights at the box office? And from what I've been reading, it's not like the box office for In the Heights was down and the streaming play for In the Heights was way up. The views on HBO Max are pretty comparable to how the movie is doing at the box office. And I think ultimately, while In the Heights was a very well-reviewed film with 96% certified fresh on Rotten Tomatoes, that's amazing. I just don't think there was enough of a breakout awareness for the movie like it is with some of these other sequels. In the Heights has a very devoted following. Lin-Manuel Miranda has a very, very devoted following. But I don't think that those followings are so big and so huge to help In the Heights, sort of become like a blockbuster at the box office. There's a lot of factors in it, but ultimately, John, just like William Goldman said, nobody knows anything. And trying to determine why In the Heights did not do well at the box office and trying to make that comparison at a time when it's not fair to compare because, the pandemic still is going on. Thankfully, it's not as bad as it was 6 months ago, but it is still happening. I think people, while they do want to go back to the movies, they're being picky and choosy about the kind of movies that they want to see. They want eye candy. They want a ride. And while In the Heights is a joyous musical, it's not a ride. It's a musical. And musicals are touch and go at the box office. You're not always going to get like a La La Land or a Greatest Showman. And I think that In the Heights, it's going to turn out to be more like Rent. The people who love that Broadway show will love the movie, but it's just not crossing over enough to the mainstream like Greatest Showman or La La Land.
Right. Rob, I mean, you and I have been talking about this for a couple of weeks now. And, I was one of those hoping that coming into the second weekend, some positive word of mouth would give it some nice legs. That obviously didn't happen. As you look at it now, having marinated on it for a bit, what are your thoughts about why we're seeing this movie continue to struggle?
Well, look, I always bring it back down to I think what Scott said is all true. And I still think the marketing aspect of it, I mean, people said, I read a few articles about this because I'm fascinated by the underperformance of this film. It deserves a bigger audience. And now I don't know how true this is because obviously exact numbers, but there's that one outside, I always say Simba, but that one outside
Samba.
tracking that Samba that tracks, I just think Simba the White Lion, that tracks viewership of streaming shows. They say that this is even underperforming on HBO Max. Yeah. And I really think that there's just a fundamental lack of awareness. I mean, this is the perfect movie to come out of a pandemic, too. This is a perfect movie to watch as we move into summer and people getting outdoors. And there's a buoyancy and a joy in this film that I think is worthy of everyone's interest. And I think it has a lot of replayability. And I think that it's something that it's unfortunate that I don't think many people, I mean, I keep looking around. I'm very aware of film marketing. And I know they say, I think this was very targeted. I think they should have come out and made this a giant, like, tentpole-esque release and gone after everyone. I think their marketing was very targeted to a specific audience, which I think was a huge mistake.
Yep.
And I don't understand it at all. I don't understand the whoever made that call really let this movie down. And they didn't promote enough of the fact that it was, as Scott pointed out, it was a huge Broadway Tony-winning production. I mean, this is even people who don't get to go to Broadway. If you live in a place in America where you don't get live theater and you haven't traveled to New York City, this could still be an event. I mean, you're taking part. Lin-Manuel Miranda and Hamilton is one of the most celebrated plays, celebrated musicals ever, arguably, in the history of Broadway. And to have this kind of firepower involved in the creation of this movie, this should have been a no-brainer that should have been marketed to every single American. Every single person in the world. And I find it inexplicable that it was not. And it's a real shame because I think it's a wonderful movie.
Okay, John, and Rob, first of all, Rob, I agree with everything you said, and John, I agree with everything you said. In terms of like the awareness of the film, so I felt like in the 2 or 3 weeks leading up to the release of In the Heights, I felt like this movie was everywhere. I mean, I was seeing ads, I was seeing billboards, I was seeing ads online, on the internet and everything like that. On what little commercial TV I watch, because everything is streaming. I did see a few commercials here and there, and of course, there was a Latino film festival in LA where the cast was at. That got a lot of press. And then it officially opened, the Tribeca Film Festival in New York. That got a lot of press. I felt like this movie was everywhere. And John, I got to tell you, you were talking about the projections being between 25 and 30 million. I read those projections in the days leading up to its opening, and I thought, wow, 25 to 30 million. This movie is everywhere. I'll bet it's going to do closer to 40.
Yeah.
Because I thought that like you couldn't go anywhere. Like, I felt like I was seeing more about In the Heights than I did about A Quiet Place and about Cruella and even about Fast and Furious 9. I felt like this movie was going to be a breakthrough film for all the right reasons, and it went the other direction. And Rob, what you said just now about how it's not even doing that great on HBO Max, I was trying to make that point as well, that it's not like it's doing great on HBO Max and that's why it's doing bad in the theaters. It's not doing that great on HBO Max either. So the question comes around again, like, really, with everything that was out there for this movie, why did it underperform and then fall 63% in the second week? It baffles my mind. Now, the studio is not going to want to hear this, but there is a chance that In the Heights could, once it sort of finishes out its run on HBO Max and finishes its run in theaters, where Warner Brothers will reposition the film closer to the end of the year during award season. And by that point, there'll be more awareness for it and more people will seek it out again. I'm sure they're going to re-release it in theaters towards the end of the year, because I'm sure that Warner Brothers is going to mount an Oscar campaign for In the Heights, where it's going to have to compete against the likes of West Side Story, Steven Spielberg's movie. So, and then there's another musical that Universal has. So there's 3 big musicals this year, and I think that Warner Brothers, it's not like it's over for In the Heights. I think they just kind of it was a bunt.
It's over. It's over.
I'll tell you right
now. Oh, yeah, it's over. I just don't see. There's no recovery from this. I mean, I think when you see this kind of a drop in its second weekend, I just don't believe that, well, okay, people will come back to it later. I think it is over. You know what? Going back to Rob gave me a little bit of insight into something here, and I think he's right. When I think back to Hamilton coming, remember when Hamilton was going to be a theatrical release and went to Disney Plus?
Yeah.
The marketing campaign for Hamilton, when you really look back at the marketing campaign when Disney Plus was putting out its promos was really about awareness, because they knew everybody knows about Hamilton. So our promos don't have to tell you about Hamilton, because everybody knows about Hamilton. We just need to make you aware. I kind of felt like, Rob, now that you mention that, it did feel a little bit like the commercials for In the Heights, while they were everywhere, they seemed to have, they took for granted that everybody knows In the Heights. That's kind of what it felt like again. It felt like that Hamilton marketing campaign that, well, you already know about the great In the Heights. And it's like, no, like Rob was saying, most people don't know. Actually, I was talking to a friend of mine in Canada the other day, and we mentioned the musical, and they were like, oh, that was a Broadway show first? A lot of people didn't know that. And then, as you were saying, Scott, In the Heights didn't have a Hugh Jackman or a Michelle Williams or anything like that. They had no recognizable faces that people who weren't already connected and aware of the property would have been drawn in. And so there's a lot. Listen, we spent too much time on this one topic already, so we'll ask you guys the question. You've seen now In the Heights has dropped 63% in the second weekend. Why do you think that is? Did you see the movie? Did you like it? Do you think it should have done better? Jump down into the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. Okay, guys. With that down, let's move on to main topic number 2, shall we? And our second main topic today gets submitted to us by John Atwall, who writes, "Hey, John. Been watching every day for about the past 3 years and love the show. Thank you so much, John. I appreciate that, man. The Supergirl costume was just revealed. Do you think the similarities between the Supergirl costume and the Man of Steel costume mean that there's still a chance for Henry Cavill to come back? Want to know your thoughts. All right, thanks for sending that in, John Atwell. And by the way, Black Bono Lala and Comic Genius have sent in super chat badges in the live chat. Thank you, guys. I appreciate that. Okay, so the other day, the Superman or the Flash production decided to reveal on social media a post that gave us our first little glimpse at the new Supergirl costume. And it gave us a little bit of a glimpse. And what we saw immediately made us think about Henry Cavill's Superman costume. There is clearly a very incredible similarity there. When you look at the texture of the costume, the tone of the colors, all that kind of stuff, it is very, very, very similar to Henry Cavill's Superman costume. Now, in that meantime, though, we have gotten actual set photos of Supergirl in the costume. Now, the first thing that I've heard people mention when they see the picture is, why does Supergirl not have a cape? I believe the answer to that question is the reason why, if you saw a lot of set photos of Henry Cavill on set of the original Man of Steel, I think it's because they're probably doing with Supergirl here what they did with Henry Cavill's Superman, which is most of the time Henry Cavill had a CGI cape. And, you know, that was a little bit controversial when Zack Snyder initially made that decision. But you know what? When you watch the movie, it was a good decision because the cape always did exactly what they wanted the cape to do, the way it flowed, when it would move, how it would move. And I have a feeling the reason we're not seeing a cape here is because it's going to be CGI'd in. And I think there's probably going to be several elements that are going to be touched up digitally on the costume. That's just a standard thing. The bigger question, of course, becomes, who is this Supergirl? Now, before we get into that, the good folks over at Yahoo News wrote in the following: this version of Supergirl's suit is a bit different than what fans have come to recognize on the Girl of Steel. Typically, the suit is similar to Superman's, including there's usually a skirt, in that it's mostly blue, save for the House of Elcrest, and topped off with a red cape. But the Flash, the cape, looks to be gone altogether. And again, I think that's just a misunderstanding of how they're doing it. I fully believe that we are going to get a cape on this thing a little bit later on. But again, really the bigger question for me is, who is this Supergirl? Because guys, there are two different trains of thought here. Train of thought number one is that this is this is going to be Flash in the Flash Katoon. There's going to be a multiverse stuff. Maybe Jor or Kal-El in some universe was born female, and Kara-El instead of Zor-El. She comes to Earth and this is the daughter of Jor-El. I mean, that is one approach to it. That would explain why the costume's the same, all that kind of stuff. However, the other option, which is what I hope it is for those of you who don't know, when Man of Steel was about to come out, there was a special prequel comic. Not many people got it, but there was a prequel comic to Man of Steel just before the movie came out. And in this prequel comic, it looks at Krypton thousands of years ago, millennia ago, when Kara Zor-El was one of the Kryptonian explorers that came to Earth. However, there's a whole drama that goes on, but her ship crashes. She gets out of her pod, and the last thing we see in the comics is Kara Zor-El on a much older Earth, walking away in the distance away from her pod. Now, when we get to Man of Steel, when Kal-El or Clark discovers the Kryptonian ship, he finds one pod with a dead Kryptonian inside, and then he sees another pod that is open and empty. Which, of course, those of us who read the prequel comic know that's the pod that Kara Zor-El was in. So the question becomes, is this Supergirl going to be that Kara Zor-El who came to Earth, crashed, and whatever? I personally hope so. I've really been wanting them to pull on that thread ever since Man of Steel. But again, it being Flash with Flashpoint and everything, it could be an alternate universe sort of approach. Rob, you've had a chance to see these images now. Number one, what do you think about the costume itself? Very, very reminiscent of Henry Cavill's. So number one, what do you think of the costume? Number two, though, is what Supergirl is this? Is this an alternate universes kind of Superman? Is this the Kara Zor-El who crashed on Earth so many thousands of years ago? What's your approach to this?
Well, first of all, the S symbol is very similar to Henry Cavill's the House of L symbol. And as far as a cape goes, normally these capes are being done with CG now anyway. So that's why when you have she's wearing a harness suit in these pictures, and there was actually video that you can find online of her flying around the city streets that they were shooting. So that's why there's no cape. There's absolutely a cape on this costume. It's just going to be added later. Now, many people have pointed out that this version of Supergirl might be Laura Lane Kent from the Injustice franchise, and I think that that's a pretty good bet, because obviously this is derived from the Flashpoint series that has alternate universes. We know we're getting two versions of Batman in this movie. So I kind of like the idea. It would fit along with what's happening in this film. Not that we know what's happening, but it seems to me if you put Michael Keaton's Batman and you put Ben Affleck's Batman in the same movie, that things aren't good. The Flashpoint paradox was not about, it wasn't all hunky-dory in this universe. So if she's coming from the Injustice version or if she's the Injustice version of the character that was the daughter of Superman and Lois Lane, I'm like, that's pretty cool, and I'm all there for that. So again, it's all very mysterious, but I really like the incarnation of this character and how she looked. But everyone's, she's wearing a flight harness suit, which is why it looks the way it looks. And I guarantee you it won't have those fake abs as present when you see it in the final film as it does in those behind the scenes photos. But I thought it looked great. I thought she looked great.
Scott, you've had a chance now to see these images. What are you thinking about them, and how's it all appealing to you right now?
Well, I got to say, I loved watching Supergirl, the TV show. I thought Melissa Benoist was fantastic. And, when I think, hearing you talk about how well does the costume kind of hint that we'll see the return of Henry Cavill. Well, first of all, Henry Cavill has expressed big interest in playing Superman again. I think that he really wants to go out with a really, really, really good Superman movie. And, I know you love Man of Steel, but it's not like it's like the first Superman movie with Christopher Reeve where like everybody loves it. So I think that Henry Cavill wants to go out with a really, really great top of the line Superman movie. But also I don't know if this is a good thing, but I'm thinking back to 1984 when I saw the Helen Slater version of Supergirl. Yep. John, her costume was very, very much like Christopher Reeve's. It just was, a skirt instead of the tights, the pants. So I think, of course, you're going to keep the look unique to that cinematic universe. And to that extent, I think, reading too far into the look of the new costume, I mean, I think it looks great. It definitely looks like Henry Cavill's costume, but it looks like Henry Cavill's costume really because it should. And I think the hints about Henry Cavill returning as Superman were made by none other than Henry Cavill himself. And I do think that's going to happen because you know what? If Henry Cavill wants to play Superman again, I'd be like, here you go. Here's the suit, whatever you want.
Well, that was, and again, we've talked about this before, but to me, I had pretty much given up hope that we were going to see Henry Cavill as Superman again. And, for those of you who haven't seen before, you can just see a little bit of a glimpse of him right here. I've got my Henry Cavill standee in here. He is my all-time favorite Superman. Yes, even more than Christopher Reeve, and although that's sacrilege to some people. But I had pretty much given up hope that we were going to see Henry Cavill Superman again until we heard about the new J.J. Abrams Superman. And when we heard about the new J.J. Abrams Superman and that they were going to go with a black Superman, I thought, well, that's really interesting in and of itself. But what it also means is that J.J. Abrams Superman is not happening inside the core DCEU universe. So this kind of opens the door again that maybe we will. I don't know if this new costume gives me hints that we're going to see Henry again. I certainly hope Scott is right, but who knows? We'll keep our fingers crossed. Question is for you guys. What do you think about this new image of the Supergirl costume? I kind of like it. And do you think the similarities between that and Henry's costume tell us anything? Do you think this is a multiversal Supergirl? Do you think it's the Kara Zor-El who crashed on Earth so many millennia ago? Do you have another theory? Whatever you guys think, jump on down in the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. Okay, guys. With that down, let's move into main topic number 3. And our third main topic today gets submitted to us by Angus H., who writes, I wanted to know if you saw the first images of Michael Keaton on set of the Flash movie. I smiled so hard when I saw it. I like that it looks like he's wearing a suit and looking like a boss. When I first saw a headline that said, first image of Michael Keaton in Flash, I was hoping it would be in a Batman suit. What did you think of the image? And do you think we'll actually get to see him in full costume? Okay, thanks a lot for sending that in, man. And yes, look, of course, there has been a bunch of drama going on about whether or not Michael Keaton was even going to be in The Flash. Because, of course, we initially got word that, yes, he was going to be in Flash. And then sometime later, we still hadn't heard anything new. And then Michael Keaton himself said, it's not a 100% guaranteed thing yet. I've got some scheduling things going on. The COVID situation makes it a bit of a question mark. We're still trying to work it out, blah, blah, blah. So a lot of people got worried. And then, of course, it became official that, yep, we got everything straightened out. Michael Keaton's going to be in there. Now, just as we've gotten our first look at Supergirl in her costume, we have also gotten our first look at Michael Keaton. This comes to us from the folks over at Screen Rant who write, shared online by New West Boy from The Girl Son, unofficial set photos have revealed Keaton on the set of The Flash. For this scene, Keaton is dressed as Bruce rather than Batman, wearing a distinguished suit. Exactly what he's doing isn't quite clear, but just seeing him there as Bruce is an exciting thing. And of course, we're getting our first. Now, it's barely a glimpse, guys. It's barely a glimpse. But we are getting our first look. And Rob, of course, there's that word I use a lot, tangibilization. It makes it so, now it's real. Now we know there's Michael Keaton on set doing the Batman thing. Now, again, I can't get too excited about this picture because what's it showing us? What's it really giving us? Not much, and that's fine. But I think the hair is looking great. Michael Keaton looks great. It's exciting to see that he's going to be in there. How this ties in, I haven't heard any official words lately about whether Ben Affleck is actually going to be there or not, or if that changed or not. So I'm going to keep my fingers crossed and hope we do get to still see Ben Affleck in there. But that being said, it's an interesting photo. Nothing to get too terribly excited about yet, just yet. As far, guys, though, he's asking the question a lot of people are asking, though. Okay, yeah. Michael Keaton's going to be there. Is he going to be in the Batman costume? Rob, you and I talked about that before, and I said, I don't think we're going to see him in the costume. And I don't think we need to see him in the costume, and that's fine. He's going to be Bruce. But I have changed my tune. I actually think they are going to give us a shot of seeing him in there. And, you got a director like Andy Muschietti, and I think he loves to play to the fans. And even if it doesn't make narrative sense, I think we're going to see Batman. We're going to see Michael Keaton at some point, somehow, some way, however short. Because, by the way, I do believe Michael Keaton's role in this movie is going to be small. I don't know that for a fact. Nobody from Warner Brothers has told me that, but I feel it's going to be relatively small. But that being said, I still think we're going to get a glimpse of him in the suit. Rob, you've had a chance to take a glance at this image. Does it get you excited? Have you gleaned any information from it? What does it mean to you? What do you think?
Well, first of all, he's got that awesome Marco Ramius hair that Sean Connery had in Hunt for Red October. So they had me at that. I thought he looked great. He looks fit. He looks badass. And it made me just long for a Batman Beyond feature film. I'm like, come on, man, spin that off. I want to see that and Terry McGinnis. I think it'd be great. But how can you not look at that image and not get excited?
Exactly.
I mean, we just celebrated I went to the world premiere of Tim Burton's Batman on June 19th, 1989. It was at Westwood at the Bruin and the Fox Theaters. I sat in Jack Nicholson's row. It was amazing. And then, of course, we just celebrated the release of Batman Returns. I mean, I don't know if people celebrate. I do. But I looking at Michael Keaton like this, I mean, you get the member berries, and you also get, I want to see something kick-ass. And he looks kick-ass in this picture. He looks like he could bust you in half still. And he's not wearing the suit. And I'm like, you know what? The fact that somebody is actually making this movie at all, finally, I mean, John, you know The Flash has been in development for 187 years. Yeah. So to actually finally see it get made with the director of it, I'm like, you know what? I think this movie is going to be great. I have nothing to go on. Just a picture doesn't tell you whether a movie's going to be great or not. But the fact that a weird Flashpoint bonkers Flash movie with Supergirl and Michael Keaton and maybe Ben Affleck and Ezra Miller's Flash, who I liked, I look at this and I'm thinking, you know what? My 10-year-old self would have been dancing around his bedroom knowing this movie's getting made. And I think it's fantastic that Michael Keaton decided to come back for this. Because remember, it was a little iffy a couple months ago or whatever. He's like, I don't know. He's back. He looks great. I'm excited. I know that I'm going to be able to now get a Hot Toys figure of Michael Keaton as an older Bruce Wayne. And I'm hoping a Batman Beyond movie is not too far away.
I'll tell you what, a couple of years ago, let me tell you this, though. A couple of years ago, I was at the premiere of the latest RoboCop that they did. A movie that I actually didn't think was all that bad. But I was at the premiere of the recent RoboCop, and at the after party, I was standing beside Michael Keaton. And at one point, he took his suit jacket off. And you know there are guys sometimes that when they're in really good shape, even though they're wearing like a dress shirt, you can see the roundness in the shoulders. You can see the V taper in the back. I remember Michael Keaton. I don't know what, maybe he was like 67 at the time. I can't remember. Michael Keaton takes a suit jacket off. And I just remember me and a couple of people who were there with me, we just saw him from about 5 feet away taking the jacket off and headed us back to us. And we're like, that dude is still in really good shape. Like you could just tell, like he didn't rip the shirt off and go topless. It's like, he still looks like in really good shape. So the hell with it, put the Batman suit on him. Anyway, Scott, you had a chance to see these images. What are you thinking about Michael Keaton being in Flash right now? And what did you get from these images?
Okay, well, first of all, I am right there with you, Rob. I got very, very excited. I mean, the funny thing is, like when I first saw the picture, I didn't know what it was. I just thought it was Michael Keaton in a movie. And then when I read the caption and it said Michael Keaton returns as Bruce Wayne, like internally I went, whoa, like seriously, whoa. And I think especially for people from our generation who were old enough to not only see Batman, the 1989 version in theaters when that opened in June of that year, but to really take in just how much of a phenomenon that was and how much of a game changer that movie was for the superhero genre. And you're right, Batman Returns was it was an underrated movie, but it's held up really well and has aged really well. So, okay, what did I think when I saw the image? I thought, okay, so when you're going to see Bruce Wayne, Michael Keaton in a Flash movie, are they setting up, like Rob said, Batman Beyond for another film? Are they setting up what could be Michael Keaton as Batman in his version of like Unforgiven, but for Batman? Like the potential of what I don't think is that Michael Keaton is just going to play it in this one movie and that's going to be it. I think they are setting the stage for something much, much bigger, for Michael Keaton to return in his own film as Batman. And I think that after all these years, since 1989 and 1992, those first two films, the prospect of seeing Keaton return as Batman is just so exciting. It's almost, for me, it's almost as significant as the prospect of seeing Tobey Maguire return to play Spider-Man and also Andrew Garfield in the next Spider-Man movie with Tom Holland, which is really going to be a live-action version of the Spider-Verse. So if the MCU is doing that with Spider-Man, maybe the DCEU is going to do something like that with Batman, where you have a movie with Michael Keaton's Batman and then Ben Affleck shows up with his Batman. I mean, how freaking cool would that be? But you know what? I think everything is off the table. Anything could happen now. And I think that like I said in the previous conversation about the DCEU, I think that they're really exploring options, and the sky is the limit. And I think we're just that this next Flash movie with Bruce Wayne, maybe Batman, is just the beginning of something much, much bigger, because I don't think that after all these years, Michael Keaton wouldn't return to play Bruce Wayne, maybe Batman, if something really, really, really big was not in store. He would not waste his time.
I would hope. I don't know. I don't think this is going to happen, but to do a Dark Knight Returns kind of story about a Bruce Wayne in his 60s who's just says, I'm tired of seeing how the city has gone since I've been retired, and it's time for me to come out and break some backs. I mean, and to have Michael Keaton come. Honestly, I think Sylvester Stallone would be a great choice for that, but to have Michael Keaton, listen, I'm not gonna lie. Listen, I know this isn't a popular opinion. I'd be 1,000 times more interested in that than in a Batman Beyond. I have very, very little interest in Batman Beyond, even though I know a lot of other people do. And if you can get it, I'll be happy for everybody. That'll be cool. But it'll be interesting to see. The question is for you guys. What did you think? It's now like we don't just have to hear about it in theory. It's tangible now. Michael Keaton's on set of The Flash shooting his roles right now. How are you guys feeling about it? Jump down into the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. Okay, guys. With all that down and out of the way, let's now go on and start taking your live comments and questions. Now, again, we haven't done a John Campea show since Thursday, so that means we've got questions going all the way back to Thursday that we still need to get caught up on, so we have a lot to get to. Once again, if you want to send in a comment or question to be read on the show or an upcoming companion video, just use the tip link that's in the description of the video, or you can enter it in manually at www.streamelements.com/movieblogtv/tip. Again, you'll be getting your comment or question read on the show if it's appropriate for the show, and of course, you'll be supporting the channel at the same time, and all of us appreciate your support very, very much. Okay, guys, let's jump over to it and see what you guys have to say. We're going to get things started up here with Jay Cruz, who writes, "Hey, John, one of two. The problem within the Heights is that the Latino community is not supporting it. Why, you ask? Because it's about a specific place in New York where the majority is Afro-Latino, Dominican, and those people were not represented. Although the movie was about celebrating Latinos, the actual people that live there didn't get celebrated. Latinos are not one kind. We don't speak, act, look, or have the same type of music, and that's why Lin had to apologize to Afro-Latinos." Look, I'm gonna be honest with you here. I don't know how I feel about that. Because, now granted, let me acknowledge first, I am a WASP. I'm a white Anglo-Saxon Protestant. I mean, I'm as waspy as it gets. I am as fair-skinned, whitey as it gets. So there are certain things I can understand, but not fully grasp as somebody who's in a different sort of situation, okay? So me saying that out of the way, I'll just acknowledge that first, okay? So with that being said, I don't know that I agree with that, because I know, I think I saw a lot of articles about a lot of the Latino community really supporting this movie, and they really did.
I did too.
Yeah. Me too.
And how am I supposed to feel about that? Like, for instance, there's a movie out right now that Disney just put out on Disney Plus called Luca. And I love the fact that it's based in Italy. I am Italian, of course. For those of you who don't know, my real name is Giovanni. My father is Pasquale. My grandfather was Giovanni. My great uncles are Carlo, Romolo, Vincenzo, Sargallo. I am as Italian as it comes. So awesome. Am I supposed to be offended that there are people in Luca doing the voices that aren't Italian? Now, look, I'm not saying it's an apples to apples comparison. It is not a complete apples to apples comparison. I acknowledge that. But there are some similarities. And I don't know. I just got a big smile on my face that they were celebrating Italian culture. And if they didn't use everybody in it who they should have used or whatever, for me personally, and I'm only speaking for myself, I don't mind. So I don't know. I don't really know that I buy. I personally think, and this is just me from one guy's opinion sitting in a room in Riverside, California, so what do I know? But I don't think the actual effect of that was anywhere near as big as it looked like it was when you looked at some of the media. And look, I will never tell somebody how they should feel or what they should be offended by or not offended by, because I don't walk in their shoes. So I'd never presume to do that. But as an individual myself, I just don't see that. You know, that was a movie made, we were talking about the guy who made Hamilton. You're talking about the guy who took all these historical figures who were, you know, white for the most part and casted all black actors and blah, blah. The guy who did that, and the guy who wanted to celebrate the place where he grew up, and then being told, you know, the skin on some of your characters wasn't quite as dark as it should have been. I just, again, I don't know how I feel about it. I think maybe if I was educated about it more, maybe I would form a different opinion in the future. But for now, it's a little confusing. Scott, you've heard about this. Do you think that really had a big impact on things? Yes, no, I don't know. How do you see it?
Absolutely no way do I think that controversy had any impact on the box office or the viewing on HBO Max. And first of all, Lin-Manuel Miranda has done more for representation than so many performers in this business. And I think it was unfortunate that he had to be called to task for that. But, you know, he owned up to it, and he said that he's still learning. I thought it was a very, very good answer to give, and it was very genuine and heartfelt. But I don't think in any way that had anything to do with why the movie has been underperforming. And I agree with you, John. I think that the media picking up on that controversy is making it sound louder than it really is, because from the social media that I've seen and from the internet reaction and from a lot of the critics on Rotten Tomatoes who are Latino, the support of the film overall from the Latino community has been through the roof.
All right, let's move on here. Next up, we've got Mischievous Gremlin, who writes, one of two. Here's something spoiler related about Loki episode 2, which, by the way, can I just throw this out here, guys? Since I saw the first 2 episodes of Loki like 3 or 4 weeks ago, I have been waiting a long time to see a new episode of Loki. And tomorrow night at midnight, I finally get to see a new episode of Loki. I'm very, very stoked about that. Anyway, sorry. Let's get back to your question here, Mischievous Gremlin. All right, 1 of 2. Here's something spoiler related about Loki episode 2. I noticed that nobody talked about it. I noticed that Ravonna mentioned in Mobius isn't the only analyst that she has worked for. Mobius mentioned that the pen might belong to a mystery. Mobius mentioned that the pen in episode 2 must belong to an analyst she has on the side. Could this be something, or could this be more of another aerospace engineer thing that won't be anything special? Well, listen, that line literally doesn't need to mean anything. She's just, all she said was, I obviously have more analysts than just you. You're not the only analyst in the TVA. I don't think that's the same thing as in WandaVision, setting up that they had this aerospace engineer and I've got a guy and they're setting something up. This was literally just saying somebody saying something obvious. You're not the only analyst we have. Now, I have a theory, and I've seen some other people say it, and I don't have anything to back it up with. I think we're going to find out that there's multiple copies of Mobius. I think Mobius did give her that pen. I think Mobius did give her that snow globe. But I think we're going to find out there's multiple copies of identical Mobiuses. Again, I don't know that, but in the comics, you know, he is cloned. So I don't know. There is or isn't. But anyway, but we have talked about it, Mischievous. We have talked about it. I think you're going to see more people talk about it. All right. Next up, we got Sam Fisher, who writes, hey, John, I was wondering if you saw the not safe for work images of Nightcrawler and Storm. Dave Cockrum's son posted on Twitter from his father's notebook in response to the whole Batman Catwoman oral sex thing. Nope, don't care about it. Simple as that. I mean, I thought the issue of that was interesting because it brought up a larger topic of when and where should the ownership group company get involved with the creative side, and where and when should they set limits? When do they have to protect their IP? Like, I thought it was interesting because of the grander picture of things. I don't care about the 10,000 pieces of art of different people who've posted them, so I don't personally really care about that, Sam. All right, Sam also writes, also saw In the Heights, and I liked it. I didn't love it. The story seemed to drag, and it got kind of bored, but I love the music, especially the opening number. And guys, I think that's fair, because as much as I loved In the Heights, the thing that got me about In the Heights wasn't the story. I mean, the story was fine. The story was a fine placeholder for what was going on, but the strength of that movie was just the characters and just the music and the celebration of their community. That's the part that hooked me. It could have done better on the story part, but it is what it is. Rob, as you look back at, In the Heights, did the story stand out for you as a strength or as a weakness? How did you see that?
I thought it was a strength. I mean, I thought it was a celebration. There's all kinds of people that live everywhere. And I think that, like Scott pointed out, Lin-Manuel Miranda has done so much for representation that never existed, especially on Broadway. And it's interesting that even Rita Moreno, who just made a documentary with him, was attacked for pointing out that very thing. And, we live in a world where on any given street, all different kinds of people can live. And I think the story of In the Heights, look, it's a musical. It's a buoyant, hopeful, it puts a smile on your face. And what's so interesting to me is I think we now live in a time where anything that is hopeful or anything that brings you joy immediately becomes suspect. Everyone's looking at it going, well, how can I'm not happy. I'm not as happy as this movie's supposed to make me. What can we do to, it doesn't make sense to me. It's like, this was already a Tony Award winning Broadway play. It's been around for a long time. It's almost like, excuse me, we're just watching this for the first time. I mean, it just seemed a little odd to me.
Scott, you had a chance. Obviously, you're a big fan of In the Heights. As Rob starts choking on his drink, you're a big fan of In the Heights. But listen, and as am I. I think overall the experience was fantastic. I do feel like the narrative was a little bit questionable. Like, kid, I want to go back to Dominican. No, I want to stay. I don't know. To me, it was just the characters, the neighborhood's grandmother, Uznavi, where his name. I mean, I like that in the music, but I don't know. Did the story stand out to you as something particularly positive or not?
Look, I love the film, but I am, as a critic, I'm going to, call a film for its flaws, no matter how much I love it. And yes, first of all, I think it is definitely too long, 2 hours and 23 minutes. I definitely felt the running time as being a way too long. And I agree with both you guys. I think that the story it's just thin. That's all. It doesn't have like a super strong, deep narrative. It doesn't have this massive arc. I think you're right that Anthony Ramos's character kind of goes back and forth, like he can't make up his mind. But the movie it's not a movie you watch. It's a movie you feel. Like you feel.
Scott Mance dropping the quotes right there. Scott Mance dropping the quotes. It's not a movie you watch. It's a movie you feel. I like that. Well, that's good.
It is. I mean, again, it just, it's a movie. It got to me because I could feel the love. I could feel the community. I could feel the friendship. You got 4 different coming of age stories going on here about people following whatever dreams that they had. And I just think all of that, the whole was far greater than the sum of its parts.
I agree.
And again, the music and the visual look of Washington Heights, New York, which I've been to many, many, many times over the years. I felt like it was a fantasy about Washington Heights. And flaws aside, I love. There's a whole lot more to love about this movie, despite its flaws.
I agree. All right, next up.
Me too.
Ryan G writes, "Hey John, I really like that Pompeii scene when Loki says they're going to die anyway. When he just tells them that was so good. Oh, I agree too. And he starts speaking in Italian, which is pretty cool. But he just jumps up there. I am Loki of Asgard. You're all going to die. and it was true. Again. When I first saw episode 1 and I told people this is a time-traveling detective story, a lot of people didn't get what I meant by watching episode 1, but once they watched episode 2, they did, and I just love the way they deduce that, and I love that scene as well. Ryan G also writes, "Hey, John, I like when they were playing I Need a Hero in Loki. Also, it was in Shrek 2, really good film, and a great song, I agree." Well, here's the thing about I Need a Hero. It plays everywhere. It has been played in movies and TV shows 1,000 times. They just played it, guys, in the trailer for the new Masters of the Universe animated thing that they're doing on Netflix. By the way, you know, a friend of ours, Tiffany Smith, is one of the voices in that. And they just played for that. I thought it was a bad trailer for Masters of the Universe. And I didn't think I Need a Hero should have been played in there. But remember, in Loki, I Need a Hero wasn't played as a part of the soundtrack. It was being played as a part of the show that happens in the Medieval Knights dinner theater. Because remember, you hear the narration, will you do this or will you hold out for a hero? And then that plays. It wasn't meant to be a part of the soundtrack. And as that, it worked. As a part of the background, it worked. But it wouldn't have worked. It was just a score choice, but it wasn't just a score choice. But anyway, it is a great song, though. It's a fantastic song. All right, Cody Hunt Films writes, hear me out. Everyone in the TVA appears to be humanoid. Why would the timekeepers do that if they were lizards? Seems purposeful to me. Could be nothing. But why would the timekeepers choose that form? Might be a hint to future episodes. Oh, it's simple, I think. Okay. And I think we're back up and running again. Sorry about that, guys. We had a little bit. It happens sometimes when you get a little bit of a technical glitch. Sorry about that. Anyway, the question about the lizards, guys, I think the answer to that is simply budget. Like, why do so many shows and so many movies, like when they go to the distant alien world, you know, we were just talking about The Last Starfighter. Why does the world they go to? I mean, yes, they had some weird shapes, but they were all humanoid. They all looked human. I honestly don't think there's anything more beyond that. I don't know, Rob, you look at it. Why are all the members of the TVA look human when this is supposed to be of all reality and all worlds and all space? I don't know. How would you address it? What do you think the answer to that is?
Well, I would say that the TVA looks the way you look if you're brought into the TVA to make it more palatable. If you're a variant and you look humanoid, everybody at the TVA looks humanoid. But if you're if you're like Kilowog, if you're part of the Green Lantern Corps to jump universes, I think everybody would look like he does. So maybe they're not getting into it, but that in my own mind, when I'm always as a dyed-in-the-wool Star Trek fan, whenever there was inconsistencies in the universe, in my own mind, I would make up things to justify them. And if you ever bought the Best of Trek compilations, there was a woman or guy I never knew named Leslie Thompson who would write Star Trek Mysteries Solved and would go over these things and had interesting ways of coming up with reasons for being. And that's mine. The TVA looks to you, however, whatever race or whatever creature or however if the Predator shows up, if there's a Predator variant, everybody at the TCA would look like a Predator. That's how I justified it in my mind.
That's a good thought. All right, let's move on. Next up, Cody Hunt Films writes, there seemed to be a movement on a Les Grossman spinoff movie years ago. What do you think ever happened to that? I have some theories, but would love to hear thoughts about what would have happened to that movie. All right, guys, let's address this for a second, because this is in the world of movies that never happened that I have always really wanted to happen. You know, for John Schnepp, it was Superman Lives. But now, for those of you who don't know what we're talking about, who the hell is Les Grossman? All right. So a bunch of years ago.
Everyone knows who Les Grossman is.
You'd be surprised. So they did Tropic Thunder a number of years ago, and that's Tom Cruise's character.
2008.
And of course, Scott Manson knows the date. In 2008, Tropic Thunder comes out, and you got Tom Cruise as Les Grossman. And it was notable for a couple of big reasons. First, just because it's awesome. And Tom Cruise's Les Grossman was one of the best characters on screen that year. I love him. I think a lot of people think he was modeled after Scott Rudin, which I wouldn't doubt at all. I think they could.
That's what I was going to say, Scott Rudin.
Yeah, I think he was totally modeled after Scott Rudin at any rate. So they do this character and everybody loved him. The end credits of Tropic Thunder with Tom Cruise solo dancing to Ludacris is one of the great, at least once every couple of months, I just bring up that video on YouTube and just sit back, watch it and laugh. It's amazing. Yep. And they did a bunch of these sketches for it, and they were talking about doing a Les Grossman spinoff movie, and they totally should have done it. Now, the other reason why that thing was so significant, guys, it's easy to forget about now. Just like people forget before Iron Man, Robert Downey Jr.'s career was pretty much done before Iron Man. Now, there was some life science. He had done a couple of other things, yes, and maybe he could have made a comeback anyway, but for all intents and purposes, before Iron Man, he was done. A lot of people forget that when Tropic Thunder came out, Tom Cruise's career was sputtering. You know, War of the Worlds came out, did not get the reception people wanted. He had the whole nightmare thing of being on Oprah and the jumping up and down on the couch. And around that time, that was everything in Tom Cruise nuts and maybe isn't that great, blah, blah, blah. And then Tom Cruise decided, let's just go crazy. Let's do this. You know, he talked to Ben Stiller and together they came up with how they were going to do this character, and he just went balls to the wall nuts with this character, Les Grossman, and all of a sudden everybody was a Tom Cruise fan again. I want that. I want an entire movie of him. And who's the Saturday Night Live guy who played his assistant? The Saturday Night Live player. What's his name again? Guys in the live chat. Who is his assistant? He's from Saturday Night Live. He played like their most popular side character on the Weekend Update news thing. He played the New York dude. Bill Hader. Thank you. Thomas Barhold is the first guy in the live chat to put it in. Thomas Barhold, Aaron, PG, King B, everybody else is writing in Bill Hader. Thank you guys. It was Bill Hader. You could do an entire movie of Tom Cruise and Bill Hader as assistant, and maybe they're trying to get a movie done with Matthew McConaughey's character. I would watch the hell out of that. Now, I heard that the project is dead. I have heard that it's completely dead. I heard it was on life support for a while. People were still trying to figure out a way to get it done. The only thing I think will ever get it going again is if Tom Cruise's career hits another roadblock and he needs something to get back on the map. But I've heard it's dead, but man, I want this. Scott, have you heard anything about this project? And is it something you'd be interested in watching?
You know, I got to tell you, when I first heard that they were planning on doing a Les Grossman spin-off movie, I thought, like, why? I liked that he was this really over-the-top supporting character in Tropic Thunder. And for him to get his own movie, like, it just would have been too much of a good thing. But yes, I did hear, because he was such a big hit from Tropic Thunder, that movie came out at the end of the summer. And I got to tell you, 2008 was such a banner year for Robert Downey Jr. because he started the summer with Iron Man. He ended the summer with Tropic Thunder. He was nominated for supporting actor for Tropic Thunder. And I watched Tropic Thunder about 6 months ago. And I'm like, there's no way this movie gets made today. But regardless of that, right? There's no way Tropic Thunder gets made today. But I'm glad that we're not getting a Les Grossman movie. And you know what? No one's asking for it anymore, and they haven't asked for it in years. I think that there was a bit of momentum after Tropic Thunder came out where people were like, oh my God, Tom Cruise is so great in Tropic Thunder. He was so awesome as Les Grossman. And you're right, the ending credits with the ludicrous song, it's hilarious. But even after watching Tropic Thunder recently and enjoying it very much, especially Tom Cruise as Les Grossman, I'm still not going, like, let's get a standalone Les Grossman movie. I think it's like, you know what? For once, Hollywood did the right thing. It went away and it stayed dead, and that's fine.
I am asking for a Les Grossman movie. I am asking for a Les Grossman. Anyway, Rob, what do you think about this? Have you heard anything about it? And would you want to see a Les Grossman movie?
I watched, I kid you not, a bit of Tropic Thunder about 5 days ago because it popped up, and I watched the beginning. By the way, I forgot that Tobey Maguire was in the beginning with playing a priest in one of the fake
those
movies.
Fake trailers were gold.
And watching it on streaming, it's really funny because those trailers show up before the Paramount logo does. Yep. And I love Tropic Thunder. I think it's a movie, and I equate it to, like, I love Get Him to the Greek.
Oh, I love that movie.
And I think a Les Grossman movie would be, if Tropic Thunder is Forgetting Sarah Marshall, a Les Grossman movie could be like Get Him to the Greek.
Fair enough.
And I don't think I've ever seen a star, famously Tom Cruise has told this story that he wanted to dance and have fat hands. He's told that on many different talk shows. And I don't think I've ever seen an actor play against type and have more fun than Tom Cruise did with Les Grossman. And I actually think today you could make a Les Grossman movie that could be hilarious but also address some really interesting issues that are very much of today. And Les Grossman in one movie could be both a hero and the ultimate anti-hero. And you could do some really interesting things with that character. But then again, I'm the guy that's still waiting for riskier business to get made, where Joel Goodson comes back and has to deal with his own kids, trying to get into Princeton. I love Tom Cruise. I love Les Grossman. I can't get enough. And boy.
Okay, wait. I got to jump in, Rob. First of all, it just hit me how you do a Les Grossman movie. Okay? It just occurred to me. Everyone out there, if anyone is in Hollywood and is a screenwriter or producer, this is how you do a Les Grossman movie. You do a Hollywood version of It's a Wonderful Life. And Les Grossman is kind of the Scrooge character. And this way he could be over the top and be the Les Grossman that we saw in Tropic Thunder. But by the end of the movie, he has this realization. He becomes like this, lovable character. And that's how you do a Les Grossman movie. And I think that the playing against type that you talked about, Rob, I think that really started in 2004 when Tom Cruise did Collateral with Michael Mann, and he was the hitman. Collateral is a great movie. Tom Cruise was fantastic in that movie. He was great playing against type. And then, of course, 4 years later in Tropic Thunder, he goes over the top. I think Tom Cruise is great. I think he makes great movies. He's probably the very best interview I ever got to do over these years. And he really is as nice as he looks like on the shows and everything. And I love the Mission Impossible movies. I think that with the exception of the second film, I think that the Mission Impossible movies, amazingly, after 25 years now, these movies keep getting better and better. Mission Impossible 4, Ghost Protocol was great. Mission 5, Rogue Nation was fantastic. And then Fallout, Mission 6, just topped them all. And I cannot wait for Mission 7. I think Tom Cruise is great. I cannot wait for Maverick, Top Gun 2.
Oh, I got to chime in and say, I totally agree with you. I only had one opportunity to meet Tom Cruise, waiting to see a screening of Valkyrie Sunday morning. And I ended up talking to him for an hour. And because we were the only people in the room. And he was there early. And he was one of the most engaging, one of the most charismatic, one of the nicest guys. And I just was asking him about his career, and he couldn't believe I could speak extemporaneously about his work. And we went all the way back and talked about Paul Brickman and directing Risky Business and all that. And that guy, he has my ultimate respect. I've liked him since 1983. But by God, I have to tell you, since he started playing against type, he didn't half-ass that at all. He went all in on Collateral and Les Grossman, and I really think now I want to see an It's a Wonderful Life Les Grossman biopic.
Right.
And I'm sitting here thinking somebody's got to get on that, because after what he's gone through with COVID and getting Mission Impossible 7 made, now going into 8, he's going to want to do something fun.
Yep. But that's how you do it, right? You do it like it's like A Christmas Carol or It's a Wonderful Life.
Are you kidding me? This is such a great idea. Somebody pass this segment along. John, cut this out. Make it a short take.
I'll get it out. I'll get it out to the studios right away. By the way, Rob, I'm so glad. Just as a side note, I often talk Man of Steel. I think is the most underrated comic book film of all time. I think the most underrated Tom Cruise movie of all time is Valkyrie. I really like that movie, and no one ever talks about. No one ever talks about it.
Well, okay. No one talks about Valkyrie. No one talks about Valkyrie because it came out in 2008, and it was so close to the implosion that Tom Cruise did with the couch jumping and the talking about the prescription drugs and the whole battle he had with Brooke Shields and the whole Scientology thing. And it was so close to that I think people were just too sour on Tom Cruise, but in those couple of years. But Rob, I agree with you. Valkyrie is a terrific film. It is a terrific film. I cannot tell you how much I loved the movie when it came out in 2008. It got overlooked. It was directed by Bryan Singer, and
written by Tom Cruise. That's where written by Chris McQuarrie.
Chris McQuarrie,
and Chris McQuarrie met, and they developed a relationship on that movie that carries through, and that's what delivered these great Mission Impossible films to us.
Yeah.
Right.
All right, guys.
And also Christopher McQuarrie. I think he either wrote or co-wrote Edge of Tomorrow from 2014, which is another amazing Tom Cruise movie with Emily Blunt. That movie is amazing.
All right, guys, listen, we have basically run out of time here today. This has gone great. Hey, guys, listen, there are still a lot more questions to come in the live questions part. Do not worry. I'm going to be bunkering down and doing a marathon-long companion video a little bit later today. So if your question didn't get brought up yet, don't worry. I'm going to be doing a companion video a little bit later today, and we will get us caught up as much as we possibly can, and we'll see how that goes. All right, but guys, in the meantime, that'll do it for today's installment of the John Campea Show. Thank you guys so much for being here and making this show a part of your day. I want to thank Robert Meyer Burnett for being here. Rob, thanks again for being here, man. As always, you were great today. Where can people follow you and your adventures online?
Well, you can find me always on Instagram at Robert Meyer Burnett. Find me on Twitter at BurnettRM, or join me on my YouTube channel, The Burnett Work, for all kinds of mirth-filled mayhem on a daily basis.
All right, Rob, thanks for that. And listen, Scott, to you as well. Thank you for being here. It's always good having you around. We've got to have you on more often. But before I let you go, I want you to talk just another minute about you. We talked at the beginning of the show about how you're working on a documentary project right now about the movies in 1982. And tell everybody just a bit about it. But more importantly, you've got a Kickstarter campaign for it. People can participate in helping to get this thing made. Tell people a little bit more about that and the Kickstarter campaign.
Okay, well, the documentary is called 1982 Greatest Geek Year Ever. It is a celebration of the great movies of 1982. When you think about like what came out in 1982, well, I'll tell you, just in the month of June of 1982, you had Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, Poltergeist in the same weekend, June 4th. Then a week later, you had E.T. the Extraterrestrial. And then 2 weeks after that, you had John Carpenter's The Thing and Blade Runner. You also had Tron. You had Rocky III. You had The Road Warrior. You had Gandhi. You had Tootsie. You had Fast Times of Ridgemont High. So many great movies came out in 1982, and that year deserves its own documentary to celebrate the greatness of that year, where we are going to interview filmmakers and actors and famous critics and famous fans who all hail 1982 as the greatest geek year ever. So we have a Kickstarter campaign going so that we can produce this movie. So the Kickstarter is 1982 Greatest Geek Year Ever. So head over to Kickstarter, support our film. Anything you can donate, you will get prizes and rewards, whether it's pins or posters or even physical medium, an actual Blu-ray copy of the movie, and you will also get your name on the ending credits. So long after you have passed on from this earth, your name will still be on the closing credits of our movie, 1982 Greatest Geek Year Ever. So please support our Kickstarter. Anything you can donate to help us make this documentary, because the goal is to have this movie the greatest weekend in the greatest geek year ever, the weekend that Star Trek II and Poltergeist opened on the same day. We cannot wait to make this movie. We need your help. Support our Kickstarter campaign for 1982 Greatest Geek Year Ever. And John, thank you for having me on. Robert Meyer Burnett, it is always great to wax the poetic about movies and Star Trek and everything else with you, my brother. I love you like a brother. Both of you guys.
Me too.
And by the way, a special episode coming out soon where I will educate Robert Meyer Burnett and Scott Mantz about why both Star Trek Discovery and Picard are wonderful. Anyway, you guys can look forward to that show. That's going to be a tough one. That's going to be hard.
Boy, I look forward to that too.
All right, guys.
I look forward to that day.
Thank you both for being here, and thank you guys for making the show part of your day. In the meantime, everybody, do the four main things. Stay smart, stay safe, take care of yourselves, and please take care of the people around you. That'll do it for us for now, guys. My name's John Campea, and until next time, my friends, bye-bye.